Hello and welcome to Get Into Games on Air, a podcast about board games and the people who play them. Welcome to episode 23, Unfringed Things. Here I am Craig, aka Get Into Games, as always, and joining me is my co-host and wife, I guess, Becky.
What do you mean, I guess?
Well, I guess. Was I right?
Yeah.
Then I was right to guess.
Right.
Excellent.
Hi.
And joining us, a very special guest from Unfringed Things themselves, the designer and creator of Mole Hill Meadows and Zuuli, we have Chris Priscott. Hello.
Hello. How are you guys doing?
I am good. How is everything with you? How has your week been? Are you full of joy or full of sadness this week?
I'm good. I enjoyed the Unfringed Things. I mean, maybe that should be the a certain branch of games. Maybe the trivia branch of Unfringed could be Unfringed Things. No, it's good. Yeah. Done a little bit of playtesting this week. The normal job as well. But yeah, it managed to squeeze in some board games as well. So good.
Cool. What have you been playing this week?
The two that I've played recently are Shoal from Molinaris Games, which we really enjoyed. I think you've also been playing that as well. And also Far Away. I'm hooked on Far Away. It just scratches that itch for me. It's really, really a good game. Yeah.
See, we've played a couple of games of Far Away.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure that we totally get it.
I think we do. I just think, I think at first we didn't get it. We weren't taught it very clearly. We were taught it well, but not clearly. But yeah, I mean, we're all right with it. It's just it hasn't.
I haven't quite worked out what everybody else.
I haven't got the bug for it that everyone else has got, but it's still enjoyable.
It's one of those games where the first time I played it, so I played a few games now, different types of games, and this was the first one in a while that when I played it for the first time, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. I couldn't figure it out. It didn't make sense until I got to the scoring phase, and then as soon as you start to flip all those tiles over and you start scoring, you're like, okay, now I know what to do. And that from that point onwards, it was completely hooked. But yeah, I can see if it's not. Yeah, it's a tricky one to get into because it has that kind of steep curve where you have to play through a whole game before it then really, really clicks for you.
Yeah, I think it suits different people's play styles. We certainly have some friends who absolutely love it, but it suits the way they like to play games.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't seem to be able to logic out what I need to do
Scoring
in the
backwards.
first half to, and then the second half to kind of score backwards. My mind doesn't work like that.
It's so unusual compared to other games, right, where it switches that. It switches up your expectations. I love it.
I'm sure we'll play a few more games of it, and then maybe we'll be.
Yeah, quickly. It'll click.
How about you both? What have you been playing this week?
A lot of, again, it seems to be a hachette kind of thing. A lot of loot has come to the table. We also played other games. We played Courtesans recently from them. That was good fun.
Mm-hmm.
That was really good.
We played a game of Far Away recently at the table with the funny wooden meeples that are completely unessential to the game, but they had a copy with wooden meeples, which was nice.
Yeah, we played some
adorable art.
Haven't we? We played online.
We played some Board Game Arena. Just been lots of little games. Again, like you said, Shoal, which is always a hit at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Wandering Towers
a lot, and we've been playing the
Shadow Ninjas.
That's him, Ninja Cats and Ninja Dogs game that seems to be taking Instagram by storm at the moment. It's by Cheatwell Games. It basically is a hidden movement game where you have these loads of ninja cats, but two of them they're all flipped one way, so they all look the same. But some of them have got colours, and those cats have got to get to the koi carp and eat the koi carp, and the dogs have got to spot the cats before the cats get the koi carp.
Oh, nice.
fun little hidden movement.
And a nice family game as well, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, awesome.
If the kids can remember where where the cats are. Where did that cat go? But yeah.
Awesome.
But that's what we've been playing. But let's talk about you.
Shall we do some quick fire?
Oh, should we do?
Question?
We should introduce. I think we should get Chris to introduce himself.
Go on then.
Successfully, better than I did it.
That's true.
Because he knows.
Most people do it better than you do it.
That's true. That's also very true.
We can compare notes.
Yeah,
we can have your intro and then we'll
handsome, very tall. Will pay me £50 in check. No, yeah. So yes, so for people who do not know who you are and your games that you produce and distribute and create, please let everybody know.
Yep. So I first started out in the board game publishing world and design stuff with Zuuli. So yeah, Zuuli's been out for I don't know, 3 years now. I think maybe 2 years, 2 and a bit years. So that's a little wildlife park drafting game that hit off at UK Games Expo a few years ago, and this seems to have done pretty well. And Oink now have picked that up for Moving Wild, which is coming internationally this year. But also released my second game, Molehill Meadows, at UK Games Expo this year as well, and that's more of a flip and write polyomino puzzle game. But yeah, have been into board gaming for kind of on and off for a while. I kind of swapped between board gaming and games like Magic the Gathering or video games or this kind of stuff. But yeah, pretty game obsessed really.
Cool.
We because we were going to record last Sunday and we didn't. We played Zuuli and Molehill Meadows one after the other, didn't we?
We did, yeah.
Nice. I do love them. They're just very easy to get out, quick to set up, but like incredibly satisfying to play.
We had the greatest game of Zuuli I've ever played.
Oh my god! Oh yeah, I forgot about this.
The first two, because you play over the three seasons.
Mm-hmm.
3 years.
3 years, yeah. The first 2 years, there was about 2 pens.
Yeah.
In the whole decks. So we just had. We started the game with I've got minus 20 points this round. Let's see what happens.
Yeah,
I was like, wow.
Yeah, it can happen. I think that's one of the so that's actually one of the rules that Oink have changed as well a little bit, so that your animals don't run away, because that can cause problems. And also the enclosures have kind of been bumped up a little bit in size. But I think it comes from the Magic the Gathering days where you kind of sometimes just get punished in the game from you just don't draw the lands you need in order to play your cards, and that's just the nature of the game. And so I think that was kind of part of the influence with Zuuli. But yeah, when it does go wrong in Zuuli and they happen to be at the bottom of the deck, you can have a pretty miserable looking wildlife park at the end of the 3 years. Yeah.
It was really funny though.
We pulled out the last one obviously had seemed to have loads of lands and stuff. It was like, okay, right, they're all hiding here. This is where they are, but not enough room for me to fit 4 elephants in.
Yeah.
Molehill Meadows is so tricky to try and do all the scoring elements. You have to I think you kind of have to pick where you're going to go, because you can't do everything, but you want to do everything, but you can't. And trying to make all those shapes work, because some of them are pretty hard, aren't they?
It's definitely one that we were playing it and it was let's play it again. We've played it so many times now. It's one I've gone, we really need to start laminating these pages, because we're going to otherwise we're going to have to just buy 4 copies of the game just to keep them in.
Yeah.
These.
Well, I do have some spares. People do want them. I can send out some spares. But it's interesting what you say about the not being able to do everything, because when I was designing it and running the kind of playtesting, I can't remember the exact percentage, but originally the game was played with 20 cards, and so now the game is only played with 18. And some people you can do so much more with the 20 because you have 2 extra cards, but you also get more worms and you do all of this stuff. And it was amazing the split between people that are really like completionists. So they really wanted to get everything every game. And then some people who didn't want that and want to kind of feel like they can do better next game because, you never play optimally every game. And it was a tricky decision. Now I fall on the side of like that second one. So I want it to be just slightly too short. So I could feel like when I do really well, it's because I also played really well. So it ended up being that side of things. But yeah, it was interesting. That was just a sign of the audience. Like some people just prefer that completionist side. And I guess with Molehill Meadows, you could always play with all 20 cards if you wanted to, if you wanted that satisfaction element as well.
I think also because you have to put the stones in at the start, don't you?
Yeah,
like if you get a couple of like really tricky shapes, then they've kind of like blocked off ways to get to the outside. The ones where you have to link them up.
I think we did it. One of us just completely blocked off the river. We were like, "Well, we're never gonna be connecting that now." That's done.
And the Games Expert, I did see some people place them very close to the starting molehill, which does hamper you a little bit. So I'm not sure you do that in your second game, but it's hopefully a nice variety every game to keep it challenging.
Definitely,
absolutely cool. So, do you want to do your quick fire questions?
Yeah, quick fire questions. Yeah,
right.
So this is to kind of find out a little bit more about you and the games you play. And you just say the first thing that comes to your head, and there's no right or wrong answer.
I feel in the pressure.
There's no right or wrong answer.
Yeah. We only take your first one. No. First game you ever played?
Probably something like either Monopoly or Go for Broke. I think I really like Go for Broke. Or Game of Life. Maybe it was Game of Life.
Oh, I love Game of Life.
Yeah, Game of Life was really good. Yeah.
More games need spinners instead of dice. Spinners.
Yeah, the little cards with the people.
Bring back
awesome.
spinners and
and gambling. There was definitely a gambling aspect, which I was strangely drawn to at the end of that game, which is probably not great.
You can gamble on the lottery, can't you?
Yeah.
And at the end, when you're retired, you get to just gamble every turn.
That's all you do. Yeah. When you retire and just gamble all your money away until everyone finishes. So,
it's like real life.
Okay, so what was the first game you ever bought?
The first hobby game I probably ever bought was Carcassonne. And that was after visiting Thirsty Meeples in Oxford and realising that there was a whole world of games that I didn't even realise existed.
Okay. A theme you would always play if you had the chance?
A theme I would always play. As my game shows, I'm a big animal fan, so anything animal related is something I'd play. Yeah.
Cool. Favourite mechanism?
Drafting. It comes from, I guess, the Magic the Gathering side as well, but any drafting game is all you have to mention and you'll have me playing that game. Yeah.
Favourite player count?
First thing that came to my head was 2, because you have that direct battle. Yeah.
Colour you choose to play as?
Orange.
Oh, not many people would choose orange, would they?
No, it's a rare one as well. You don't always get it right because it's not one of your classics. But
that's cool.
I was very happy when the Oink box came out as orange because it's my favourite colour. I didn't ask for that, and so that was great.
There's a really cool company that do you can buy all the board game components in your specific player colour. So there's like a box of like orange and blue and pink and green, so you could buy. It's quite cool.
Yeah, I've got one from Attican Games. She sells them, and I play orange box, so I've got orange dice and orange meeples and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Most interesting place you've played a board game?
Oh, I want to say no, we didn't play a board game. That's a really tricky one. It's going to have to be a boring answer because I can't think of it like a train. Yeah, I mean, it's not that exciting. I'm sure I've played it in more exciting places, but yeah, no.
This one is kind of linked, but how far have you travelled to play a game?
Oh,
Like
probably just Essen. So yeah, not so far, but yeah, hopefully Tokyo Game Market at some point. But,
oh yeah, cool.
Yeah.
A game you never want to play again?
Oh, I don't know actually. Yeah, probably Cards Against Humanity. Yeah.
Yeah, once you've played that once, I think, I
think Chris misunderstood. We said a game, and Cards Against Humanity, not a game.
Yeah, I mean, it has its appeal when they've done exceptionally well. It's just not for me, that game.
Your favourite board game memory?
Probably visiting Thirsty Meeples and for the first time being taught. We had an amazing staff member that taught us the game. I can't remember what we played, but Carcassonne was one of them, and then something else. Yeah, and that was awesome. Just playing a game that was unlike anything I've played before.
Yeah. Favorite convention?
UK Games Expo. It's the best. Yeah.
Is it better than Essen?
Essen is Essen's just a big shop, a huge shop. Whereas I find UK Games Expo is a nice blend between like Aircon and probably Essen. So you have the open gaming, but you also have like visiting exhibitors and the new games and stuff. But Aircon is also, it was my first time I went this year and it was also excellent. So yeah, but Essen is like intense. Yeah.
Yeah. The most beautiful game you own?
I can't remember. I think it's called Reincarnated, which was a Kickstarter a few years ago. But the art in it it's like full of animals and evolution of animals and stuff. But the art is stunning. Yeah, it's really great.
And your most underrated game that you think is like a gem that people don't realise?
Probably Mindbug. So I don't know how many people have played Mindbug, but it's it's excellent.
What is it? What kind of game?
It's a dueling like card game where you're playing ridiculously overpowered creatures onto the board to play against your opponent, but you each have these mind bugs where at any time when an opponent plays a creature, you can choose to take it for yourself. So it's this battle and kind of bluffing game as well, where you kind of try and draw them out to use their mind bug on a creature which isn't quite as incredibly overpowered as another incredibly overpowered creature that you have in your hand. Like, it's made, I mean, it's Richard Garfield, like one of the original Magic the Gathering guys, is one of the designers on it, and it's it's excellent. It's really good.
That sounds cool. That was all my questions.
That was it.
That was good. Wasn't it?
That was a very good, quick, fiery questions.
Yeah,
I liked it.
Good, excellent,
cool.
I aim to please.
Yeah. So, being like a pub, you publish games, but you design them. Do you have a preference? What do you prefer to do? Do you prefer being behind the wheel, or do you prefer being the stress of trying to get them out to everyone?
Great question. I think at the beginning, the design bit came a bit easier, and the publishing side was, I knew nothing about it, right? I had to learn everything about how it worked, how you get games manufactured, and that obviously is then a bit, it was hard work and kind of stressful because you don't know how it works and trying to piece it all together. So at that point, I would have said design was better. But I think now that I've kind of done that for a few games, that side is definitely kind of easier. It takes up maybe 95% of my time. And I actually find the designing like much more difficult now. I don't know whether it's like I was chatting to someone the other day, and it's almost like, is it the saying that they say like the tricky is it the tricky second album or the tricky third album? I don't know. Like that kind of saying. I don't know. I feel the pressure a little bit now. So I think I'm really highly critical of the stuff I make. And so that side has become much more difficult. Yeah.
So how did you come up with the idea for like zuuli and Molehill Meadows in the first place?
So zuuli was originally, so I played a lot of Sushi Go and Draftosaurus during like the first lockdown in COVID. And loved both of those games, fantastic games, but I wanted something just a little bit more. And yeah, I don't know what made me sit down to, because I've never designed board games before. I designed a few video games before. I don't know, I can't really remember what made me actually take a notepad and start writing down ideas, but I did. And zuuli came out of it. I think it just fit that drafting idea so well to be able to take all those components and fit it all together. Everything just matched up really nicely. And it kind of came spurred from that. I think Molehill Meadows, I took the kind of opposite approach. So zuuli was very much designed from the theme, and the theme kind of then drove the mechanics, whereas Molehill Meadows was completely designed like abstractly in Microsoft Excel, of all places. Basically iterated on that until I had something that was fun to play in Excel, which is a tough thing to do given you're looking at a spreadsheet. And then decided to fit a theme after that. And then Moles, I hadn't actually planned to make a family kind of style game again, but Moles just fit the theme so well that it kind of developed into Molehill Meadows.
So like, how long between like it becoming a reality from starting designing it for both of them? So like zuuli started in 2020-ish, and then but how long were you thinking of Molehill Meadows for? Were you thinking of that while still producing zuuli, or was it?
No, so Molehill Meadows actually, I think the first design was, I think I checked my my Google spreadsheet date the other day, and I think it was like mid-March last year was the first day I sat down and started to do something on it. And then, I guess I released it or ran the campaign for it in May this year. So that was just over a year for like the full cycle. And then, zuuli was a bit longer, right? And maybe zuuli was 2 years probably total to like, but that was mostly because when I started zuuli, I had no intention to release it as a game. It was merely like a little hobby thing to see if I could make something. And then it was the next thing, which was like, okay, can I get a printed version myself? And then it was just step by step by step, and eventually decided I'd like to kind of complete the whole process. Whereas Molehills was much more intentional, which was like, I want to make another game to publish. So it was all the steps I kind of knew and followed those steps like I did for zuuli and turned it around like that.
Would there be a mechanic that you would just not do? Like, is there a mechanic that you're specifically quite bad at and that you would never put that into a game in future? Or
so I've actually set myself a and maybe this is why the design comes harder to me now as well. But as Unfringed, I'm trying to keep all the games that I publish as synchronous games. So games where they're not turn-based. So everyone is always playing at the same time. So there's certain mechanics which like fit with that really well. So drafting, everyone is always doing something. The same in zuuli, you're always developing the park together. And with flip and writes as well, you're playing from the shared pool in the middle, so everyone is playing at the same time. So I guess any mechanics that don't work with that, I choose not to design around, which actually has made life much more difficult as a designer because there really isn't that that you're quite limited in what you can do. But I'd like to think that also helps breed a little bit of creativity because I have to force myself to think of either newer mechanics or tweaking other mechanics to make them fit a kind of synchronous game.
Do you think you'll stick to like small box games? You know, because they're quite small.
Well, it's portable, yeah.
Portable
stuff you can always just shove in a bag and then go.
Or have you got ideas for like a massive?
No, so I don't know how they do it, to be honest. The designers that design these big games, like, I struggle to keep something like Zuuli in my head in terms of like thinking out how it all fits together. And these people that design, I don't know, these 4+ weight games on BGG and stuff, I just don't know how they do it. I think it's beyond me to be able to design something like that. And it must take like the playtesting, like for a game that takes, I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours to playtest that, like, it's enough that it's also a good game is going to take like a long time. So yeah, I think I'm going to stay away from that for now. And then, yeah, I really like another kind of unfringed like philosophy, I guess, is trying to introduce these kind of hobby mechanics that you get in kind of hobby games to the kind of slightly more mainstream audience. So something like drafting was the idea with Zuuli, to bring drafting to people that have never played like a drafting game before. Molehills is like a flip and write. Yeah, and so trying to think of those kind of mechanics where you can kind of simplify them a little bit, bring them to a more mainstream audience, and then but have enough strategy underneath that you can kind of, that experienced players can still enjoy it. Yeah.
Mm.
Have you got new stuff in the pipeline? Top secret stuff in the work?
Top
Are you working on
stuff.
Another 3 games currently?
If I told you, I'd have to kill you, Craig.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
So I actually playtested 2 designs yesterday, and it's really hard to tell. It's like I was saying earlier, I'm so critical of my designs now that I don't. If you ask me directly what I think of them, I say, oh, it's not as good as Zuuli. But I don't think that I will design something again where I think it's as good as Zuuli because of how critical like I am on myself for that stuff.
Yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, there's 2 games which I'm testing through and they seem to work okay, but they're also smaller games. Actually, they would probably both be smaller box than potentially maybe Zuuli size or below. So they're not big epics.
How does playtesting work? You know, do you start off with people close to home and then sort of sprawl out? Like how do you get?
I think so it's tricky. Sophie, my wife, who also you may have met at Games Expo and stuff as well. She's the number one in-house playtester, let's say, begrudgingly maybe sometimes, but no, but she's excellent at running those first ideas past, and also helps with a whole bunch of like development and tweaking mechanics and this kind of stuff. And then going to kind of playtesting design, well, mostly design groups with other designers, and playtesting with them, and then also trying towards the end or through the process as well, doing this kind of blind playtesting where you give it to, it can be family, but you don't tell them anything about it and you just give them the rules and the game. And I like to kind of watch as they do it and not say anything and just see the parts that they have difficulty with, the parts which, particularly work really well. And then you can kind of make tweaks off that. And that's especially good for the rule book phase, is to see whether your rule book is good enough. It's you just give it to someone that has no idea what your game is about and see if they can play it. And I think that's especially important for kind of the games that I make, which are more targeted towards like a family audience, that you're not always going to have someone that understands even what drafting means. So for example, in Zuuli, it was called drafting, but actually that's kind of a bias that I had, which I'm like, oh yeah, everyone knows what drafting means. But it turns out that a lot of people don't know what drafting means. So switching it to like pick and pass, which is much more self-explanatory for this stuff. Basically, roping in anybody that will happily sit down and play a game on a bit of scrap paper is how you playtest. Yeah.
Do you do the playtesting at like conventions and things? Because they often have
Yeah, so I haven't done yet, but I know that Aircon has demo tables. So I'm tempted next year for Aircon to potentially demo. Oh well, if either of these two games continue, maybe demo one of them at Aircon next year. But yeah, I think I heard that Aircon demo. Most of the people that I knew that demoed Aircon, they had their tables packed the whole time. I think because it's in the open game area, you can just grab people so easily to come play a game for 15 minutes. So
and especially Aircon is so like everyone wants to play games. Like Vendor Hall's great. People are really happy to go around and buy themselves some dice or have a look at Hachette's giant stand or Asmodee's big old stand.
Yeah,
but people just want to play games. People want to see friends and play games. And with the designer side of things in open gaming, it feels like we're just playing games. Whereas in at UKGE, it's in the hall at the back kind of thing. You have to go there wanting to do that. You're not just going to scroll past. And obviously it's so busy, you have to book in and all that stuff.
And that was such like my first time at Aircon, so I didn't really know what to expect. I'd heard a lot of people say really positive things about it. But yeah, I had one of the nicest feelings that I've had at a convention when I'd finished on the stand for the day. And I then walked through, I think I went to go grab some food. And I walked through that open gaming hall, and the amount of like happy, smiling families and people playing games, it was just like, it made me like kind of emotional, like just seeing how it was a really, really lovely experience. And that's, you're right, at UK Games Expo, because it's so big, I don't know, you don't quite get that feeling, but especially at Aircon, just seeing like families and kids and stuff playing all of this stuff, it was such a nice feeling and environment.
Cool.
So you've also designed video games, which you mentioned before, and obviously with board games, what's easier, or are they both got their equal challenges? What do you find more challenging or easier?
It's something I discussed recently as well with some people. I think so. I find video games much easier to prototype and tweak. So you can change a couple of lines of code and you have like a different game, or it plays quite differently. To do that with a board game, you have to go in, you have to change. If you're doing it like digitally, you have to go in and change all the assets, then print them all out again, or you have to draw them all out again yourself. And that turnaround time, it's quite a lot to switch up a mechanic and quickly test something different. And that can make it can make it more challenging. And I think someone described it the other day, like board games are to have a good board game, you're really focused on the essence of like what makes like a game good. Like with video games, you can hide poor gameplay, or not poor gameplay, but like average gameplay. You can hide it with fancy special effects and you have particles all over the screen, or you can hide it with like a really like banging soundtrack or whatever. Whereas with board games, you don't have that. You literally have some bits of cardboard and plastic in front of you, and that has to instill that kind of same emotion in a player. So I really think that makes it quite difficult. And I think when you get a good game, I think it's you get a lot of that emotion still that you get from like a video game, which has all of this extra stuff that it can throw at you to make you feel a certain way.
That's what.
Sorry, Karen.
No, I was going to say that's what I think is so great about Zuuli, is that essentially it's just a pack of cards.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that you're playing it, you do actually feel like you're building out a zoo, don't you?
Yeah.
Because you're putting out the pens and then you're assigning the animals to the pens, and you do get that kind of feeling of, I'm actually, creating a little zoo here.
Just don't think too much about the idea of like passing animals around between each other. And stay away from that bit a little bit. Yeah. Or what did someone say? Like when the animals get discarded at the end of a year, they're actually going to Michelin star restaurants, which is a little bit grim, but
With what's like obviously with prototyping board games and stuff like that, there's us, the community, there's content creators, there's the board game community on Instagram and YouTube and all of the other places, other social networking sites are available, and that kind of thing. I don't know, like the difference between designing a video game and having the community in that side of things. Is there, do people prototype test in the same way, or is there?
That's good. So I've never actually pushed any of my video game stuff as much as I've pushed like the board game stuff. So a lot of the play testing, I actually didn't. The concept of play testing for video games when I was first kind of making them it didn't cross my mind as a thing to do. More recently, some of the more recent kind of 2D games I've made, I have pushed out to people to playtest, but I like to keep them at the moment. I don't push them too much. Like they're free to play, and it's more of like a learning experience for me rather than something I'm pushing as like as a moneymaker or anything like this. Yeah. But I think it is important. I think from a professional, if you're doing it kind of professionally, I think it's as important to make sure that you're getting stuff out early, getting player feedback and all this stuff. And that's possibly easier.
Yeah. I mean, how important did you find the community feedback with like games like Zuuli and Molehill Meadows? Do you think that was very much there for the success of the actual Kickstarter of the campaigns, or?
Definitely. So from the influencer side, 100%, like definitely getting people's thoughts on the game, and it's scary, right? Because also when I don't ever like put a stipulation on someone to say like you can only give positive reviews or whatever. So when I was first handing out Zuuli, it's terrifying. It is like you think it's good, but you're putting something out into the world, trying to like, and you have no idea what they're going to say, and they'll publish it, and you just have to deal with that. And it reminds me of I always bring this up with Sophie, but it's one of those things that the negative feedback also hits so much harder than the positive feedback. Annoyingly, I don't know whether this is the case across many people, but when I first made an Android game, when I released it, one of the first comments I got back, just the one word, said dirt. And I was like, and I don't know why, but that is like stuck with me for like 10 years now, that someone just hated it that much that they just wrote dirt. And so I guess when I send these games out, that's what I'm expecting back a little bit. Maybe next time when I send you a game, you can just an Instagram reel just saying Molehill Meadows, dirt. Although that kind of fits.
Well, that makes sense.
That does fit. Yeah.
Post tomorrow.
Maybe that's a subconscious thing. Maybe that's why I made Molehill Meadows, so that kind of feedback would be positive.
But I think because you're doing it all yourself, obviously that negative feedback then hits harder because it's all on you. Like you're not hiding behind another publisher, or it's all your own effort, or your blood, sweat, tears.
Yeah, and you learn quite quickly, I think, that, you learn, maybe not quite quickly, but you definitely learn that what you create is never, you can't make everyone happy with it. And so you do need to focus on the people that get joy and entertainment out of your thing that you've created. And the other people that don't like it is also totally fine. Like that you can't please everybody with it. And I know that some people just don't like reviews at all, so they don't listen, they don't watch reviews, or they don't look at BGG for that reason, because they just don't want to hear anything about it. They're happy with it, and they put it out and let the people decide. I'm a bit obsessed, less obsessed than I was, but I mean, it was like when you run a Kickstarter, you're constantly refreshing the Kickstarter page to see if you have any new backers. And then when Kickstarter finishes, you're constantly refreshing the BGG page to see if you've got any new reviews. For me, that's probably a bad habit of mine, to be honest.
It must be difficult on from being an indie publisher in that way, because that is the reviews and that kind of thing are the only real kind of mainstreams of kind of getting that content, getting that information about the game. And if there are people that just don't want to see reviews and don't want to read that kind of thing, that must make it much more difficult to actually get noticed because those people are actively ignoring reviews.
Then you can only get kind of exposure from putting yourself out there, and if you get the negative exposure, then that's like the only exposure you're getting, which is obviously can be devastating. But I think it's still critical as part of the review process. I fully believe that there should be positive and negative reviews and all of this stuff. But it is like you said, as an indie publisher, you really have to make something good, or at least have to believe that there's an audience out there that enjoy your game enough that you'll get that kind of positive result. Because if you don't, I guess you're competing against, I think I saw today, like 5,000 board games released a year or something like this, which is that's a lot of games that you're competing against. Yeah.
So how do you sort of stand out in the crowd as an indie publisher? Like, how do you get the word out?
I'm still trying to figure that out, if I'm honest. But I think places like UK Games Expo helps a bunch. Like I think a lot of the why zuuli has done so well is because that first UK Games Expo I went to, we managed to convince some people to sit down and play this game from a publisher that no one had ever heard of before, and they enjoyed it and then shared that with people.
Yeah.
And that kind of, like, if you can tell two people and then they tell two people and all this stuff, right, it grows, and if you've made something good, that joy is shared and stuff. But you're kind of, I think, mostly dependent on that, because advertising is like a dark art in itself, right? And also costs a lot of money. So you can't, I don't think that's so accessible to you. And I think it's just, being as passionate about your game as you can be. And when you talk about your game and you play your game with people and try and instill some of that enjoyment of the game into them. And then, I think that's all you can really do as an indie publisher.
I think from the outside, when we're walking around UK Games Expo or Aircon, there are some indie publishers who have very sort of bland, like, spaces, and your stall or booth or whatever you would like to call it is always quite vibrant, quite colourful. Yeah. You guys are always trying to entice people to play, often playing with them or showing, I think that goes a long way to grabbing people's attention.
Yeah, I think it came from, like, I love garish colours. I mean, you can see, the people on the podcast can't see. You can see the background is full of very bright art. I love kind of anything bright. The zuuli box is a good example of that. And the first year of Games Expo, actually, because you pick a starter stand, right? So you don't know where you're going to be placed. And we got placed on that side of the hall where we've always been now. But on one side was miniature wargaming, and the other side was miniature wargaming. So we were stuck between, like, excellent miniature wargaming people, but obviously nothing like zuuli. And so I think actually having the bright tablecloths, the bright game, helped us stand out a little bit in that kind of dark war-themed area.
Warhammer world,
Yeah, exactly. And then, this year we were next to the mead guys, and everyone loves free mead. So that also helped a lot to draw people into the stand. I think I think because of the style of the games, it helps to bring that kind of colour. But it doesn't work for everyone, right? When people saw zuuli for the first time, they also thought it was a kid's game. And I understand that, because the colours are very primary colours-esque. You find that kind of balance. But then the people that do like it really like the art. So, you can't please everyone, right?
How did the whole the zuuli and the Oink Games collaboration thing come about? How did all of that sort of happen?
So it was UK Games Expo last year. We had zuuli second edition. It had some promos, so we had a lot of people come to the stand and stuff. So zuuli did pretty well last year at Games Expo. And one thing we noticed, both Sophie and I, where there were a few Oink Game T-shirts, like maybe a couple on the first day. And then I think on the Saturday, we had like 5 or 6 people from Oink all come to the stand to buy the game. And it seemed like, I don't know, I didn't, we thought it was kind of interesting that had happened, that Oink was so interested, but didn't really think anything of it after the expo until I got a message from them after the expo, a few weeks afterwards. And it turns out that Jun Sasaki, who is the founder, designer at Oink, had actually bought a copy off me at the expo. I had no idea at the time. And really liked the game, and then asked if there were the license still available in Japan, which I said yes. And then they also, from that, were interested in other licenses for other parts of the world as well. So it kind of stemmed from there. But yeah, I had no idea that I think he had played a game maybe the time before, just really enjoyed it and wanted to sign it.
That's really cool. I mean, other than card shape, what are the main kind of differences then between them now?
Other than the kind of the Oink style, I guess. So they restyled the whole box. It's now in one of the classic Oink size boxes. The main change is there are a couple of rule changes. So any areas that you don't fill now score negative points, and any animals that you have left over score negative points still, but not as badly as in Zuuli. And you also get to keep them. They don't go off to a Michelin star restaurant this time. And what it does, so this is the base rules of Moving Wild. And I think it works in a different way. And it was actually really interesting so the collaboration with Oink was really great. So they would message stuff through to say, hey, we're thinking about changing this or adding this. And I would mock up a version of Zuuli with those rules. We would play it. And it was what was fascinating, actually, was we'd played hundreds of games of Zuuli at that point. But when we got these new rules through, it was like playing not a completely new game, but the strategies were completely different. So with Zuuli, we probably solved it now, right? We know what works, what doesn't work. With Moving Wild, it was completely different. So, and that was especially true for this advanced rules in Moving Wild, which is slightly more punishing rules. So, for example, any space you have left in an enclosure, or an area, I should say, for Moving Wild, is negative. So if you have an area which has got 8 space in it, but you don't have any animals in it, that will score you negative 8 points. And so it adds this extra strategy, whereas in Zuuli, you might always take the enclosures. You're not going to want to do that in Moving Wild, because you're going to get punished pretty hard if you take areas that you can't fill. But that's the compass to the advanced rules of Moving Wild. But so it's kind of, the core game is kind of the same, and the core game loop is the same, but I would say significantly different strategy to be able to do well at it.
And I'm assuming that both of them are still going to remain available. You're still going to be selling Zuuli, and Moving Wild is going to be
in the UK. Yeah, so in the UK they'll happily coexist with each other, but the rest of the world will likely be just Moving Wild. Yeah, apart from Korea, which has got a Korean version of Zuuli, but that was signed before the Oink version. So there is a Korean version of Zuuli out there as well.
Yeah, very cool.
So you can kind of collect the collection.
Collect the Zuuli. So yeah, that is it. After the promos, I'm collecting the Zuulis.
Yeah. I need to do a post, because I have the very first cards I made of Zuuli, the original paper bits, and then some of the prototypes. And I should take a photo where I kind of line them all up, and you can see the progression of Zuuli, which has kind of got bigger and bigger and bigger, and now is gone to almost the smallest version, which is the Oink Games version. But yeah, it's gone through a whole cycle of development.
Extra large version on tarot size cards coming next.
Yeah. Oh, that's the thing, right? That is it Hachette that do all of the large versions of the games? So maybe there has to be a
giant version.
Like those Kavango cards was it Kavango?
Yeah, Kavango had the giant, giant Pokemon cards.
What's your feelings on expansions?
I would love to. So I mean, I have already a bunch of ideas for different cards for Zuuli or Moving Wild or this kind of stuff. The issue is that I think the rough number they say is that you can expect maybe like a 10% conversion rate from the base game to an expansion.
Yeah.
And so the numbers need to be like good enough on the base game to justify like the print run of the expansion. I don't know. Maybe like I've got my fingers crossed that Moving Wild does really well. Hopefully it will. And then, I might send across an email to Oink to say, hey, like I have this expansion idea. I'm not sure whether Oink have ever done expansions to their games, but I could try and
could be the
convince
first
them.
Expansion.
Yeah.
It's quite difficult to balance it though, especially when it's like a card drafting kind of game. You don't want to have a card that's so ultimately powerful. I mean, obviously the Zulicorn is the most powerful, the most amazing card you can ever play it.
You can't can you pull that off? I don't know.
I'm sure you can pull it off.
It is possible, but I've never seen anyone. Like, as soon as you take it, I think the only way to win with the Zuuli Unicorn is to get it in the very last year, but have been collecting everything else that you need in order to satisfy it. Because I think as soon as you take it, no one is going to pass you the cards that you need to complete that. Complete it. But like I think you're right. I think actually going back to like the Magic the Gathering example was like the first Magic the Gathering cards are so ridiculously overpowered that they've all either been banned from like some play or they're only played in very limited formats. Not the Zuulis remotely close to Magic the Gathering, but it is. What do they call it? Like power drift or balance drift or something. That as you make more versions of it, like stuff just generally gets better than the original cards, and obviously then that ruins the original game a little bit. So we'll see.
Any thoughts for because I know one thing people have said that they want for Molehill Meadows is more, which I don't think it needs because of the modular rock thing personally, but people want more kind of maps for Molehill Meadows.
It's on the list. I would also like to do a digital version potentially, but I don't. I've got a few ideas for it. I'm kind of torn with Board Game Arena because I think so. Zuuli is on Board Game Arena now, and I love Board Game Arena. It's got me through a lot of COVID. Like, it's fantastic to be able to play against people all across the world. But there's something about it which, like, at least for Zuuli, it removes some of that, like, makes Zuuli kind of thing in the first place. And it kind of gets broken down into, like, the core puzzle that you're trying to solve. And so the theme kind of gets removed, and you could just be playing cards with numbers on it because that's what people are kind of optimizing that puzzle. And that's, like, people seem to really enjoy doing that, so that's great. But I'm worried that with Molehill, like, it's why I'm slightly torn about whether to put Molehill Meadows on there as well, because I don't know, it removes a lot of that kind of social aspect where everyone sits down and plays a game around the table. But then a lot of people can't do that because they don't live near each other. So, I'm slightly torn, but maybe a slightly different digital version could
Sometimes I think if it's your first experience of a game on BGA, if you're playing Zuuli for the first time on BGA, and you go, that's okay, but like you won't get the full experience of it until you actually play it. Like we've done that with a few games. You're like, what's that doing? You know, what is it though? Because sometimes BGA takes all the thinking out of it because it tells you which card, you can take these cards or whatever.
And I think you also play. I find, at least for me, I pay less attention to the table, so I'm kind of just in like autopilot a little bit. Whereas when let's say you're playing Zuuli, like there's something about like actually that pick and pass, and you pass it to actually someone on your left-hand side, and then you're seeing what they've collected, and you can actually see it without having to scroll down on a screen or something. Like, I don't know, there's something about that which is good. Maybe, but they can both coexist. It's definitely helped. Like having Zuuli on Board Game Arena, I've had a few people come to me at Expo and at Aircon and say, I really love this on Board Game Arena, and I'd like to get a physical copy. So it's great. It's great for that as well. It's just
there is that kind of balance though, because like with Board Game Arena, like we've played Patchwork in the flesh before, but we can play it on BGA, and because we can play it on BGA and it's so good on BGA.
Yeah,
I don't feel like I need to buy the physical game because I can just fire up the laptop. We can sit next to each other and we can play a game. And that, from a publisher point of view, from an actual sales point of view, might make someone go, I don't need to buy the game. It's right there on my computer.
Yeah, exactly.
300 other board games that I can.
And I don't know whether that, as a designer, whether that should actually factor into your design process as well. Is like, how do I design something which ensures that this remains analog, so that ensures that this is the best way to enjoy this game is to be sat at a table, and maybe there are things you can do to ensure that that's the case. But I do think, like, I agree with you. Games like Patchwork are so good on Board Game Arena and you can play it on a train, or you can play it wherever, right? Like a quick game, even if you're sat next to somebody. Sometimes it's just easier to pop it up on your phone and play a quick game against them. Yeah.
And I'm thinking about Molehill Meadows now online, and I think, like, the way I imagine it on BGA, it would sort of pre-give you that shape, and then you just twist it
click where you want it.
But there's like something about drawing it and having to like figure out like where I'm going to put that shape and how it fits with what I've done already.
And starting to draw it and then realise I've made a mistake and get a rubber.
There's something charming about that you wouldn't get on BGA.
No.
Yeah, I think that's I'm a huge fan of flip and write games and roll and writes generally. And that's the appeal. Like Next Station London, absolutely love Next Station London, or the Next Station games generally. And but there's something about drawing those train connections, like those line connections on the map, and creating that in front of you. It's much more satisfying, I find, than when you play on Board Game Arena. Again, it's fantastic on Board Game Arena, but something about that tactile, actually creating something in front of you is great.
Yeah, definitely. So, because you're into all this, or making your own board games and publishing them, are your family and friends all behind? Are they all lovers of board games? Do you meet up? Kind of weekends and holidays and.
So we do have so with my old school friends, we meet every year, and I think this year there was 36 of us or something, and we rent a big place, and everyone comes, and most of the time, actually this year was a lot of time taken up painted miniatures, so that was a lot of fun, but like a whole kind of family activity, right? Like kids from 3 to 12 plus a whole bunch of adults all just sat around painting miniatures. But then in the evening, like, we had games of Blood on the Clock Tower, which was the first time I played that, but absolutely amazing. And you play it until 3 a.m. in the morning or something. So that's something that we do a lot with old school friends, and we try and do that every year, and it's something we really look forward to, because we can just sit down and there's no expectations to do anything other than just like chill and play board games or paint miniatures or this kind of stuff.
Cool. Really cool. And so you're a convert to Blood on the Clock Tower now, then?
Oh, I love it. Yeah, we used to play Werewolf a lot, and I think we played it so much, and we were playing it with like groups of 30 people. It can take a long time with 30 people, and because then when you're out, it was less enjoyable for people that get voted out or eaten on the first night. But Blood on the Clock Tower is like, especially when you first play it and you really don't know how to solve the puzzle, and everyone has got all of these crazy ideas and theories about why this person should be drunk, and actually most of the time it comes down to like someone saying, oh, but they could be drunk. And then you'd kind of like, yeah, of course they could be drunk, but it's a 1 in 20 chance that they're drunk. It's so good. Yeah, so good. You also run some games of it, right? You've been the clock tower man or the narrator. Yeah.
Yeah, we play it mostly every Tuesday.
Pretty much every week, yeah. Online, I've got the Discord channel,
nice,
where we play on the app, which is great, and I storytell at the cafe that I work at, and
in person is best though.
100%.
Yeah, just the thing that changed it for us, and actually it elevated it even more, was I think it says in the rule book like people should get up and move around to talk to people. Yeah. And so the first game we played, we didn't really do that. And so you kind of have people sitting around talking across or shouting across the group. But then when you get up and move around, and then you have people forming these little coalitions and stuff out of no reason other than, I don't know, you like them slightly more, so you feel like you can trust them, I don't know, something ridiculous. It's so good. So, yeah, it's really, really good.
Cool.
So what is your favourite board game
of all time?
Of all time, it can be yours. I'll allow it.
I couldn't pick mine. No, I think mine are all inspired by other games that I really love. Right, so like, I don't know whether you call it a board game, like Magic the Gathering. I know I've brought it up a lot. That I've played different times throughout my life and have always thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think if I could only play one game again, it would be Magic the Gathering. Even though I don't play it at the moment, I haven't played it for a few years. I think there's just everything about that game it's just perfect for me. So I think that that kind of game is my kind of perfect game.
Have you tried like Lorcana and Star Wars Unlimited?
No, not yet. I know you're a fan of Star Wars Unlimited, or at least cracking the booster packs. I haven't yet. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, which I know is a controversial thing to say.
And
on
that's
this
all
podcast.
the time we
have. Says it right at the end. It's fine.
But I should try it at some point, and maybe I'm going to Essen this year, so maybe I'll try and grab a demo at Essen to play a game. Or I should just get some starter packs. I guess you can get 2 starter decks or something.
Yeah,
you can get the starter decks, and also next month the next series is out.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you recommend Lorcana over Star Wars Unlimited?
No,
or have you played both, right?
Yeah, so I would say Lorcana is kind of, I don't know, a bit easier. There's not as much kind of
deeper strategy. Yeah. I would say Unlimited is more like Magic, and Lorcana is incredible art. Like the artwork is out of this world. I would say it's for younger. I think our daughter can play it quite well, and that kind of thing. It's pretty. There is obviously some strategy. I'm probably doing it a disservice saying there's not much at all, but there obviously is when you build the decks, but it just doesn't feel quite as like you don't feel like oh my god, I've got no resources, I can't do what I need to do, and now this character's gonna
writing. I don't think on the cards is there to read.
Whereas
with Star Wars Unlimited, there's quite a lot of I've got to understand what these all mean to be able to play it.
Yeah. Do you also get that moment? So in Magic, we always called it like beardiness, kind of like a wizard stroking their beard, like where someone will say that they're going to do something, and then you go, aha, well, actually, I'm going to do this. And then they respond with, well, actually, I'm going to do this against this. And then because this triggers, this does this. Do you get that kind of in Star Wars Unlimited? To a certain extent.
I mean, there are things that you can do that can kind of stop things happening to you. But there's no reactionary cards. You can't like throw a card back when someone's.
Interesting.
There's nothing that kind of immediately.
It's more take a turn, do something, and then the other player.
Does.
Gotcha.
But there's like things like you can have sentinel units and shields, which like sentinel units, you have to attack them before you attack anything else. You're drawing the fire one way rather than scattergun.
Yeah. And does it feel thematic as well? Like, I guess with Magic, I don't think I ever really felt like the theme shone through that much, I don't think. I guess because I probably boiled it down to its very like core stuff. But do you get that theme in Star Wars? You feel like you're having like a battle, like a Star Wars battle between people?
It does, but I find this is where controversial opinion. This is where the Star Wars, the deck building game, the Star Realms Star Wars game has more theme than Unlimited, because you have to play Imperial versus Rebel, whereas in Unlimited there's no reason why you can't have Imperial versus Imperial. You can't have the Emperor as your leader battling someone with Darth Vader as their leader.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, okay.
That immediately makes no sense to me, and you're just playing cards and you've just got rid of all the theme.
But that's because I think you're a big Star Wars buff, whereas I don't have all of that to bring with me, so I do feel like it's Star Warsy, but that's because I don't have all the background knowledge. So I'm like, yeah, that's cool to play that card. Like
it's Star Warsy, but then if we both had like armies of stormtroopers battling each other, why are our stormtroopers just killing each other, and why are we not dealing with Luke over there, who's just going to blow up the Death Star, but we're just fighting each other for fun?
Yeah. I guess you could have house rules. You could have lore house rules that. Yeah, I'm sorry, but this actually, in this episode of Star Wars, this wouldn't actually happen. So, that move is illegal in this match.
Yeah. You have to have a Rebel versus Imperial, or you have to have, like, Syndicate versus someone. Anyone.
Gotcha.
So, we will last week we did one. Hooray. We're going to do another one. Do you have a board game menu for us? Have you thought of one, or am I just throwing this out at you right now?
I have thought of one. Fortunately, you gave me slight heads up, so I do have one. So, as my starter, I feel like do you listen to Off Menu podcast? No,
that's the James Acaster.
Yeah. I love Off Menu podcast too. I felt like I was inspired. It's like being on a mini Off Menu podcast. Anyway, as my starter, because it's also quite appropriate, probably vegetable stock. Have you played vegetable stock?
Oh no.
So vegetable stock is like, the name is excellent for a start, because it's you have a bunch of vegetables and you can make a stock out of them, but also you're playing the stock market with vegetables. So it's a very, very simple game. I think I heard of it first time through Taiwan Board Games, but I think it was originally published by somebody else. But yeah, very simple card game where you are taking vegetables over like 6 rounds, and then any vegetables left in the middle influence like the stock market price. And then if the stock market price goes too high, like aubergines crash, and now aubergines are worth nothing. Very, very simple, but like it's a big inspiration for mine as another game designer, because you can explain the rules in like 10 seconds, but there's way more complexity than 10 seconds of rules would have you think. But I think that's a great starter, I think.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it's really nice. In tiny little box as well. You can take it with you anywhere and teach anyone, right? Because it's not complicated at all. Main menu. Again, I was going to pick Magic, but I've talked about Magic too much now. But probably Mindbug. So I didn't play too many like heavier games. So like the games that kind of last for 2-3 hours, because I guess that makes a great main course. But we can happily sit and play 3-4 games of Mindbug with each other, and that'll take maybe a couple of hours as well. So yeah, absolutely love Mindbug. And then dessert, I kind of mixed it into 2. If it's a big group, then it just has to be, Blood on the Clock Tower or Werewolf or one of those games, where everyone can, you're still sat at the table, everyone can enjoy once they're full of Mindbug, and enjoy some Blood on the Clock Tower. But a smaller group, I've recently played That's Not a Hat, and again, like such a. It's inspirational to me as well, like how such a simple game can instill such a crazy feelings and stuff. I absolutely love it. It's such a smart game, and everyone enjoys it, right?
Well, I get really anxious because I can't remember for the life of me what What's been passed or not passed?
I can't immediately remember.
It's like I don't know.
Yeah, and I think it's I don't know. It brings out just the best in people, maybe the worst in people as well, but the best, like how how people put on like a confident face and just say so confidently, "That's a cat," and you're like, "That is absolutely rubbish. That is definitely not a cat." But I'm not going to call you out on it because I don't want to lose. So the confidence there is I love it. It's a great game.
Have you played
Cockroach
Poker?
No, I haven't. I've seen it and I've heard recommendations. Is it a similar kind of concept?
So it's like bugs. There's like 8 different types of bugs, and you essentially pass a bug and you say, "This is a beetle," and the person can either call your bluff or pass it on.
Yeah, or pass it to the next person, and eventually the last person has to take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha.
But the idea is that you have 4. If you end up with 4 matching bugs in front of you, you lose. You're out automatically. It's just a really cool game, and it has got that. It's not a hat vibe of just passing things around, and it's just really heavy on the bluffing and stuff. It's such a fun.
Nice. Someone recommended Skull to me as well. Have you played Skull before?
Yeah. Skull. We played that quite a bit on during lockdown. We played that over Zoom because you can play it quite easily. Yeah, that's quite nice.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I mean, and I guess honorary mentions probably to something like Draftosaurus. I can play. I really enjoy that game, and something about drafting actual dinosaur meeples. I don't know what you call them. Dinosaur deeples. I don't know. Is very satisfying when you play that in person, and also Far Away. We discussed it as well, but Far Away at the moment is continuing to be a game that I enjoy quite a lot.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you have a board game confession? So something that I don't know, something that's you. What would you describe that as, Craig?
A confession.
Yeah.
Something. Is there a game that you secretly love? Is there a game that's really popular that you secretly don't love? Is there something you've done during a board game that's turned the tide, which might have been a bit, not really,
not really on? Yeah. I think so. I'm not particularly competitive when I play board games or when I play games generally. And I think I can probably sometimes lean into the slightly trolly element of playing board games. And it depends what it is, but that's probably more my confession, is that I like to cause a little bit of chaos in games. Or try and break the game, try to manipulate the mechanics in a certain way that, I don't know, breaks the game. So that's probably, and some people don't mind, and some people get a little frustrated when you're just throwing chaos into the game, especially when there's an actual move that you should take, right? Because it's clearly the right thing to do, and you choose to do something different. I don't know, I get maybe some joy out of doing that.
Chaos is always good.
I like it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Please let everyone know where they can find you if they want to follow you in the street.
Not your house, Nathan.
No, don't. No. Yeah, I live at number 19. So best place to get in touch is on the social medias is at Unfringed Things for Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and then. The website is unfringed.co, so there you can find the shop, and if you want to grab a copy of Molehill Meadows or Zuuli, that's the best place to jump into.
And plushies, and plushies.
And plushies now as well, which are always board game convention treats for people. But we also have them on the website, so but we're out of stock of unicorns and red pandas, I think. I think red pandas, again, this year at Expo were sold out very quickly. People love red pandas.
And do you know if there are copies of Zuuli or Molehill Meadows available from Rent, Shuffle and Roll? I don't know either. But the good thing is we are sponsored by Rent, Shuffle and Roll. So what you can do is head to www.rentshuffleandroll.co.uk and use code GITG50 to get 50% off your first month of maybe renting Zuuli, or maybe not if it's available. But you can find that out when you go to www.rentshuffleandroll.co.uk and use the code GITG50.
And if it's not available, you should definitely ask for it to become available so that you can do it.
Or go to unfringedthings.co.uk and buy yourself a copy and a plushie.
That was seamless, Craig.
Seamless, absolutely seamless.
Like, where are you going to put this in? And then you just rolled with it.
You know what? I can
professional.
I can do anything. But yes, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. It's been a really cool episode having a chat. Good luck with everything and hope to see more games in the future and see you at more board game conventions.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you very much. That was really good fun. And I will see you at the next convention. What is the next convention you're at, out of interest?
We were maybe thinking of going to Tabletop Scotland.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
haven't decided on that either.
We'll definitely do Aircon next year and UKG.
Perfect. Well, if we don't see each other before, I'll see you at Aircon with a demo, hopefully, of the new game. Yeah.
Yes. Exciting stuff.
Cool. Excellent. Awesome. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, you forgot to say.
Oh, yeah. And remember to get into Zuuli.
Oh, yeah. Well, get into Molehill.
Molehill, yeah. Plushies.
Get into games.
Get into Unfringed Things.
That's it. Get into Unfringed Things. Thanks so much, guys.
Bye-bye.